Till now, we have discussed the various events in the first 15 years of India's independence. All these years, India was headed by the charismatic Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. Today, we are going to discuss the miscellaneous of Nehru years. The years from 1951 to 1964 were those of maturity and achievement. They were also the years marked by high hopes and aspirations, optimism and confidence. First and the most important achievement was the democratization of India, whose more than 80% population was illiterate. The election commission was set up and elections were carried out successfully. They gave due importance to the institutional aspects of the democratic system so that gradually attachment of people to parliamentary institutions grew. Civil liberties were put on a firm footing with the press having a free play, even when it criticized the government severely. The independence of the courts was carefully nurtured, even when they turned down an important piece of popular legislation, namely agrarian reforms. Under Nehru's leadership, the cabinet system evolved in a healthy manner and functioned effectively. Though Nehru was initially opposed to retaining ICS cadre for administration, he accepted Patel's suggestion and continued to use existing bureaucracy. Apart from this, we have seen previously that he created Indian Foreign Services to build a cadre to handle foreign policy for India. A major achievement of the Nehru era was in the fields of scientific research and technological education. Nehru was convinced that science and technology were crucial to the solution of India's problems. He laid the foundation of many institutes like Indian Institute of Technology, Atomic Energy Commission, Indian National Commission for Space Research, etc. Indian society had to move towards social change and it was emphasized by Nehru. We have seen that despite the opposition from communal forces, Nehru successfully passed the Hindu Code Bill, transforming the Hindu society. The founding fathers were fully aware of the need for better and wider education as an instrument of social and economic progress, equalization of opportunity, and the building up of democratic society. The government provided large sums for developing primary, secondary, higher and technical education, while the expenditure on education was Rs 198 million in 1951-52. By 1964-65, it had increased to Rs 1,462 million, that is, by more than 7 times. Since education was primarily a state subject, Nehru urged the state governments not to reduce expenditure on primary education, whatever the nature of financial stringency. He suggested that even expenditure on industrial development could be reduced, if necessary. Two major programs for rural uplift, namely the Community Development Program and Panchayati Raj, were introduced in 1952 and 1959. They were to lay the foundations of the welfare state in the villages. Though designed for the sake of agricultural development, they had more of a welfare content. Their basic purpose was to change the face of rural India and to improve the quality of life of the people. But during all these progressive years, there was a slight period which appeared to be the litmus test of Indian democracy. It was a period of Kerala crisis from 1957 to 1959. In 1957, the Communist Party of India won Kerala's assembly elections by a slim majority. The first communist government was formed in the democratic India, which was headed by the highly intelligent and dedicated leader E.M.S. Namboodiripad, famously known as EMS. The trouble began with an education bill introduced by EMS soon after assuming his post. The bill pushed for better wages and working conditions for the teachers in private schools and colleges. The Catholic Church in the state, which ran many such educational institutions, saw the bill as an encroachment of their power. So did the Nair community, which had charitable schools of its own. For the church especially, schools played a crucial role in their religious agenda. The local Congress party members, who had just lost the elections to the communists, saw this as an opportunity. They galvanized the aggrieved parties into statewide agitations, which were termed as the liberation struggle. To further complicate the matters, leadership of this struggle was taken up by a Nair leader named Mannath Padmanabh Pillai. Pillai was crucial to the movement because of his unimpeachable reputation for honesty, which gave him a political aura similar to that of Mahatma Gandhi. The state was plagued by agitations, strikes, and protests. While the protesters employed mob violence and rioting, the government resorted to lathicharge and firing. Around 150,000 protesters were jailed, and there were some 248 lathicharges, and many protesters were killed. Crisis reached its peak in Kerala when police accidentally killed a pregnant fisherwoman, whose death came to symbolize the movement. Nehru too bemoaned the violence. In principle, he had had little objection to the education bill. Publicly, he maintained neutrality, refusing to intervene. Privately, he admonished EMS for his government's excesses and tried to rein in Congress party workers. But he failed to change minds on either side. Communists saw this as a conspiracy by the Congress. The local Congress workers, on the other hand, were encouraged by sympathies of the national leaders, including Indira Gandhi. After the death of fisherwoman, under the pressure from within the party, Nehru finally relented. EMS government was dismissed, and for the first time president rule imposed on the state in July 1959. In the consequent elections, Congress campaigned with posters of the killed pregnant fisherwoman, handily winning the majority. Since it was the first non-Congress government in India, it was a test for Nehru's central government to cooperatively work with the non-Congress state government. But due to some unfortunate incidents, the president rule had to be used. Since it was the first president rule, the event is worth to mention here. Let us now see the legacy of Nehru. Jawaharlal Nehru can be justifiably considered an architect of modern India. He was one of the greatest Indians of 20th century. He has been variously described as a democrat, socialist, humanist, and visionary. But he was all of this and more. Any assessment of his role in the making of independent India would need to take cognizance of his immense stature and extraordinary personality, and would therefore inevitably be the complex and somewhat controversial. Maintenance, strengthening, and consolidation of India's independence were among Nehru's most pressing tasks. In a world that was sharply divided between the two superpowers, which were determined to extend their hegemony over the rest of the world. Nehru resisted all pressures and refused to become their pawn. India's internal policy, whether right or wrong, developed outside the direct influence of the superpowers, and India remained in full control of her internal as well as her external policies. Nehru also successfully resisted penetration of India's political and economic structure and institutions by outside agencies. Nehru succeeded in maintaining and strengthening the national unity forged during the freedom struggle and rendered fragile by the manner of transfer of power in 1947. He also succeeded in checking disruptive forces, consolidating the nation and the independent state, and promoting the psychological integration of Indian people. It was no mean task. Casteism, provincialism, tribalism, linguistic chauvinism were surfacing again. The princely states were there, and of course, there was the ever present danger of communalism. Nehru was successful to keep all these forces in check. The most important contribution of Nehru was in nurturing democracy and parliamentary government. When he assumed office as Prime Minister in 1947, the time was ripe for becoming a dictator or forming an authoritarian government. But it was due to Nehru's allegiance to democratic values that inculcated democracy deep into India. Nehru's commitment to democracy and civil liberties was total. Nehru rejected the capitalist developmental and civilizational perspective and instead worked for the fundamental transformation of Indian society in a socialistic direction. Clearly, he did not succeed in building a socialist society, and there was a large gap between his precepts and practice. But he did, over the years, grapple with the problem of initiating socialism in an underdeveloped country with a democratic policy. It was Nehru who carried the socialist vision to the millions of people and made socialism a part of their consciousness. Nehru's commitment to secularism was unsurpassed and all-pervasive. Communalism went against his grain, and he fought it vigorously throughout his life. He helped secularism acquire deep roots among the Indian people, and he prevented the burgeoning forth of communalism when conditions were favorable for it. Nehru did not devote much time and effort to social reform in narrow sense of the term, but he was opposed to social conservatism, realizing that men and women do not live by bread alone. He regularly emphasized the necessity of bringing about changes in the social sphere along with economical and political changes. One of his greatest achievements as Prime Minister was the passage of the Hindu Code Bill. Another was the care with which he promoted education among girls and public employment of middle class women. And without a doubt, he was the master of foreign policy. In one of our previous videos, we have discussed the foreign policy of Nehru and how it helped India. For all the period of his prime ministership, he also assumed the role of foreign minister. He set the new direction of foreign policy, not only for India, but also for the world. Nehru's health began declining steadily after 1962, and he spent months recuperating in Kashmir through 1963. Some historians attribute this dramatic decline to his surprise and charge in over the Sino-Indian War, which he perceived as betrayal of trust. On 27th May 1964, this great leader passed away. Nehru, the man and politician, made such a powerful imprint on India that his death on 27th May 1964 left India with no clear political heir to his leadership. Indian newspapers repeated Nehru's own words of the time of Gandhi's assassination. The light has gone out of our lives and there is darkness everywhere. In our next video, we will discuss the second Prime Minister of India, the years from 1964 to 1966. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and comment because discussion is solution. For more discussions, please subscribe our channel.